Welcome to Below the Belt. Welcome. And we're having a late start here. And we're going to find something to blame. So we're going to blame the weather. How is the weather where you guys are? Guys, in this country, when it rains, it slows down everything by at least half hour. You got to go slower on the roads if you're coming into studio. We would have left so much earlier, but it's raining, guys. It's a big front, as the guys say in meteorology. The Met guys, for a shorter word. It's a huge front. It's a huge movement. And I came down, well, rather took an early run up to Berbice, and it was raining all the way to Berbice and back. And this is Region 5, that is, and I'm certain by now, probably Region 6 as well. So, it's raining cats and dogs, as we say here, proverbially, in Georgetown. Cats and dogs. So, you guys who are at lunch, thanks for allowing us into your lunch break. And if you guys are on the roadways, we rather advise that you guys take it a little slower out there on the roadways. Again, it's really raining here, and we're watching the weather. We don't go by this local weather here in Georgetown at all. Georgetown, Guyana, that is, because whenever these guys say it's gonna be sunny, we get rain. And when they say it's gonna be raining, it's bright sunshine. Might even get a little slow. But that to say, we're watching at weather.com. And they're telling us that this afternoon firstly it's 28 degrees outside. So it's fairly humid. Humid. And there's a 24% chance of rain, but it's really raining here. And they've said that into the evening is going to be 26 degrees, and then it is 82% chance of rain. So it's a rainy evening ahead of us if you go by what weather.com is telling us. So again, they're saying it's 28 degrees outside with a 24% chance of it raining, and that percentage probability goes up as the evening progresses to 82% outside, guys. But we hope that you guys are dry, even if you're going to be outdoors, and warm wherever you are. And we ain't going to complain, because we know as you go further north, you go to North America, those guys got it even worse. Karen McFoy, good to see you there, and Sharon McPherson, Shelley DeRidder, and George Anna, and Elizabeth Trim, George Griffith, Carol Jonas, Eileen Griffith Norton, Innes, Cecile Ogle, all you fantastic folks in North America and other places where the winter is coming in fast and furious. We are going to be thankful for this little rain we have here. We know that you guys would rather be here than there. I know, enough for you, I won't say it, but I know, and as a matter of fact, having left the US about a month ago, I know lots of people are planning to be home for Christmas. And I understand why, because we were leaving fall and heading. Well, you guys were leaving fall and heading into winter, and I understand why you guys would rather be here than there. That place cold, by. That's a freezer you all got there. So we're sending some of this warmth as much as we can. Kashama says it's a snowy Wednesday. It's going to be a snowy Wednesday. We're sending some of this warmth and tropical rain your way. Orlando Small says it's cold in Chicago. Well, Orlando, I know you'd rather be here than there. Natalie Grimman, I see you there as well. Natalie Grimman and Marilyn King. Tessa Waterman, good to see you. Tessa says it's cold in her neck of the woods. We'll be sending some warmth your way, Tessa, and all the other folks. Karen McFoy says it's cold in New York City. Junior Ramatar, what is the weather where you are? Guys, we know that you guys would trade this weather for anything. Again, it's 28 degrees here with a 26% chance of it raining this afternoon, and that probability percentage goes up as the evening unfolds. Guys, last week, circling back to something we said on our program here last week, wanted to bring some clarity. We were telling you of a market day out on the Square of the Revolution. I later learned that afternoon that it was the International Decade of the People of, or rather, International Decade for People of African Descent Assembly, Guyana. They were having a grand one-day sale and exhibition out on the square of the revolution. And I hope those guys there do that more often. It was nice to see the square abuzz with activity. And again, that was on the 3rd of December, last Friday, the International Decade of People of African Descent Assembly, and this is the Guyana chapter. They were having a grand one-day sale and exhibition, and I hope those guys do that more often. Big shout out to LC, who is part of this group here. Love to hear Elsie every time I get a chance to hear her on social media or read something she's writing. So Elsie and team, they're down at the International Decade of People of African Descent Assembly in Guyana. Good to see each and one of you. Guys, we are discussing, somebody's trying to come in while we're on, but guys, we are discussing rather today, we are doubling back to a discussion we started last week in our program. This is the Tonika Calder story. And today we're talking about to serve and protect. And again, the Tonika Calder story, a very, very sad, heart wrenching story of the life and death of Tonika Calder. We're going to give you a synopsis of what this story entails. And I'm privileged this afternoon to be joined by Natasha St. Louis, who is a member of parliament. Privileged also to be joined by Catherine Hughes, a member of parliament. And very, very privileged to be joined by the Region 3 Vice Chair soon enough in our program. And this is Kamal Prasad. She is the Region 7 Vice Chair, and more pointedly hails from Bartica, former Deputy Mayor of the municipality of Bartica, and very privileged to be joined by all of these powerhouses and heavyweights for women. Again, Natasha St. Louis, Catherine Hughes, and Kamal Prasad. They are going to be joining us. I think we're going to get to Kamal joining us a little later on in the program, but we do have Natasha St. Louis and Catherine Hughes with us. Ladies, welcome and a very good afternoon to each of you.
Good afternoon, Gerard. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Kathy, do we have you there as well? And while we wait for Kathy, and hello?
Are you hearing me?
Yes, crystal clear. Welcome, Kathy.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great to be with you this morning. And greetings to all of Guyana. Keep warm on this slightly lower temperature day.
And Kathy, I know we ain't gonna complain here because we'd rather have this lower temperature day, quote unquote, than a freezing cold, freezing cold day elsewhere.
Absolutely, I'm grateful. I recall days spending a Christmas with a sister in Washington, D.C., and shoveling snow. So I think we're privileged here.
Yes, yes, and I hope we have the. But I didn't see any reported instances of flooding yet because we might not be privileged to shovel snow, but we might be bailing water.
That's very true, and that is a sad situation for us. Yes.
Yep. Kathy, how is the weather where you are?
I'm on the East Bank right now. It's very, very wet. We've had a lot of rain most of this year, and of course, in the last couple of weeks. So the plants are practically drowning, but they're still sopping up the water.
Great. Natasha, how is it where you are?
Well, Gerard, this is a really nice weather for, a book and a nice cup of tea. Take your mind out of the gutter, Gerard. It's a nice weather for a book. But Gerard, I must let you know that I'm en route to my constituency, which is Region 5. I received some calls last night, early this morning. Parts of Region 5 is under water. At least the Rosignol area, where they also are experiencing unprecedented high tides, and that is compounded by the heavy rainfalls. And so I said to my contacts there that rain or sunshine, I'm coming tomorrow. And it turned out that it's a rainy day, but I'm on my way to my constituency. to meet with the residents there and see what can happen.
Very nice. And you know, part of the tragedy of the governance system in this country is that you have absolutely no funding available to the opposition as it obtains in places like Jamaica, for instance, where you can do different projects for your constituency as a member of parliament, and all of that is part of the governance structure. Once you're out of office, you have absolutely no public funds that is to your disposal to do any meaningful work. And we know sometimes the talk is always, what are the opposition MPs doing? But unless you go into your pocket, nothing will be done. And I
Yeah.
know that the MP on the opposition side of the house do go into their pockets, and we're able to fundraise, and we have kind folks in the diaspora and elsewhere who pitch in to help to bring meaningful relief to the citizenry locally. Natasha and Kathy.
Yes, Sharon, I'm glad you touched on that because just by way of example, in England, every single MP actually is gets an office that is funded, a physical location where you can meet members of your constituency who can come and sit down with you and speak with you on some of their challenges, and you work, of course, to finding solutions and serving them. And then, of course, you also have assistance that's given by the country for to hire someone to assist in research and the proper operations of that office. And it's sad that in a country like Guyana, especially with the added resources we're saying that we're going to have access to, that we don't start to consider how, if we want a true democracy, both sides, all your representatives, whether they are in government or in opposition, how is it that we can give them the means to do even better? So I do compliment um, Natasha, who's out there today. And, we just keep trying to do the best. We are part time MPs in terms of funding, the stipend we get, but we work full time. So, just by way of sharing some information on what happens in other countries.
Fantastic. Thanks both Kathy and Natasha. And Kamal is going to be joining us later on in the discussion. Fingers crossed, God willing. That being said, folks, I want to turn our attention to the Tonika Calder story as we look at this whole notion of policing and the police force serving and protecting. And Tonika Calder was an 18-year-old who went to the police station on the East Coast, two police stations, to make a report out for rape. She was sent from one police station to the next. And the treatment of Calder was as though she was the perpetrator, as against being the victim. She ended up ultimately at the Covendron police station, where the officers there didn't treat her nicely at all. Again, treating her more like a perpetrator than a victim, questioning her about her personal sex life, interrogating her. And then from some of the reports we saw in the media, particularly Starbuck News, who has stayed on top of this story, suggesting that she was lying and that she had made up this story, telling her, according to Sabbath News editorial of December 2nd, that if she pursued this matter to the court, she was going to be charged for lying. And so far, the summation is that because of this harsh negative treatment by an alleged victim of rape, Miss Calder, who was barely 18, took her own life, sadly. And so the Guyana police force has come once more under the microscope, for public interrogation, and the way in which victims of domestic violence and of rape and all of these ills and scourges in our society has come also in for scrutiny, the way police treat with these matter. And so it's into that discussion I welcome both Natasha Singh Lewis and Catherine Hughes, both members of parliament. And again, hopefully we're joined by the Region 7 Vice Chairperson, former deputy mayor of Barjika, Kamal Pasal. Ladies, your initial reactions on hearing of this, what Starbuck News call a dastardly and deliberate, acts perpetrated on her by both police and alleged perpetrator of this rape incident.
Sharad, let me say from the beginning that it is a very sad situation. The way police handled this particular matter is an insult to all of us national leaders and professionals, especially those who would have worked and dedicated much of their time to seeing the Sexual Offences Act being approved and signed. And that act was further amended. A lot of work I can remember went into the amendment in 2013. Now, Sherrod, the way the police handled the matter is sad. The victim blaming, and
I would dare
I
say beyond
listened
sad.
exactly. I listened, I followed. I initially started following Paul Slow on this matter, and then Starbuck News. Sherrod, what took place at the police station? I believe that we ought to move from this slow pace of investigation to something more tangible for the parents to accept, because they cannot accept that the police is now investigating the 2 or 3 ranks involved. And we will wait another couple of months, and then we will hear what they think. The office responsible for investigation, I can't remember the name. We will hear in a couple of months what they think. The commissioner of police called in the relatives of Miss Calder, and they took statements and so on. So I want to go a little bit beyond the police here.
Proceed.
The Ghana responsible, no, sorry, the Ghana Human Rights Association called out the police on this matter. They have issued a very strong statement. Actually, they said that they believe that the matter was treated in a cruel and inhumane way, and possibly it was illegal treatment the way Ms. Calder was handled. Let me say to you, Sherrod, subsequent to those strong statements from GHRA, the illegal attorney general, the installed attorney general, called out the Human Rights Association. He is questioning where their finance is coming from. Can you imagine what kind
Bizarre.
of tactics he is using to shut up this association? Now, when we need all of civil society, we need every leader, we need everybody to come out and speak up on matters of rape. And Sherrod, I want to say to you that rape is a form of violence. We are currently in the 16 days observing international elimination of violence against women and girls,
Correct.
which will come to an end on the 10th of December.
Yeah. Yes,
How
actually,
how is it?
just let me give members of the public the right phraseologies. There is 16 days of activism against gender-based violence under the team Orange the World, End Violence Against Women Now. And this started on November 25th, and as Natasha says, it runs until December 10th. Quite interesting.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Sherrod. And during this same 16 days period, the Attorney General on his weekly program called out the association for making representation, for making a statement on Ms. Calder's suicide. Sherrod, That is more than sad, but that's where we are. I have said on a subsequent program that we have adequate amount of legislation and regulations in relation to violence against women, any form of violence. But what we don't have is adequate implementation. One aspect of implementation is the police.
Correct.
And
Correct.
we're not getting the service that the police is supposed to provide for us.
Agree totally. Then, Natasha, as you're at this point, I want to welcome Kamal Prasad to the discussion. Again, the Region 7 Vice Chairperson, and she is also the former Deputy Mayor coming out of Bartica. And while we take this pause to welcome Kamal, I want to invite you guys who are joining us across social media to share the live stream. Samo Williams, we see you there, and Claude Wharton. Is it Michelle Webster? uh, Shaloma, rather, Falanda, Elizabeth Norine, good to see you there. Wendell Harry, Leslyn Charles, Sito Williams, all you fantastic folks across social media. We encourage you to share the live stream so that other persons can benefit. And again, welcome, Kamal.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be able to join from the beautiful township of Bartica. As MP Kathy said, the weather is not the best today, but we are grateful for even the rain, as our friends, like you said, are experiencing the cold up north.
Fantastic. Thanks again for joining, Kamal. Kathy, your intervention there. First reaction to this whole bizarre, sad story.
Sharad, this situation and this event is just horrific. Horrific because on every single level, the Guyana Police Force failed to deliver proper service. They failed to protect this young lady in the aftermath of this rape. And, Guyana has failed once again a young person. Now, why I say that this is horrific, because it is hard to imagine that a section of the police force, some police officers, who we assume should be at least trained, a police service that should have at least protocols on what you do in such a scenario. How is it possible for so many errors to be made in such a heartless manner? And here I'm talking about failure in the way they actually received the report of the rape, failure in the interrogation process, failure in blaming the victim, blaming. There are so many things that went wrong. It is hard to understand. Um, if I could go into a little more detail
Go right ahead,
from
Kathy.
the interrogation process. You know, people forget that the tone and the attitude are so important. And it's interesting because I was doing some research and I came across the New York State Coalition Against Sexual Assault. And they have a handbook that they produce and share with police officers in the US. And what do they say? It's interesting that they say that some of the first responding techniques to a person that has experienced any form of sexual violence or gender violence, a few tips that they mentioned, that first of all, your priority is to attend to the victim. Be careful not to stigmatize.
Mm-hmm.
Preserve
Mm-hmm.
evidence. Preserve evidence. We have a situation where, based on all accounts, it is absolutely clear that the police officers had their own impressions, formed their own impressions as to whether um, the situation and how this event unfolded. And it was clear that they went out of their way to ostracize and to exert verbal violence on this young girl, on Tamika, once again. There was no attempt. In fact, they went out of their way to tell her she could come back the next day So clearly, they were not interested in preserving the evidence, right? The
Okay.
fact of the stigmatization. There's a law that I'm going to quote later in the program that's in the US law, where in terms of the interrogation, you're supposed to find a quiet, very private room, and it actually says only the persons directly and immediately relating to the interviewing of the particular victim, that is the victim, a social worker, or a rape crisis advocate or psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
or any other professional providing emotional support, and also anyone that the victim chooses, such as a parent or guardian, those are the only persons that should be there. For start, also, because it's a gender-based violence, a violent act, she should have had female police officers in that room with her. Instead, we had, I understand, and you could correct me, but from what I gather, we had three male officers who actually had the perpetrator in the room causing a confrontation, and then he say, she say.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it was absolutely clear that they were not interested at all in going out of their way to preserve to reassure this victim that we were going to police, that we were going to protect her at this time.
Mm-hmm.
There was no consideration of the trauma that she went under, how she would be feeling. In situations like this, they say again, every effort must be made to relieve the victim of possibly feeling shame or self blame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As a matter of
None of
fact,
these
part of the
things.
reporting, nothing from the reporting suggests that there were females present, one. And two, the reporting suggests that when Miss Calder, 18 years old, was giving her statement concerning this alleged rape, the alleged assailant was allowed to rebut the statement that she was
Yeah.
But
giving. It's bizarre.
but it is absolutely bizarre because for the first, if in the first state, he shouldn't even have been in the room.
Correct.
He
Correct.
should not even have been in that room. We know from watching those TV movies and so sometimes CSI Miami or whatever it is, they just have to be passing outside in the corridor, and
Correct.
you could see the
Mm-hmm.
frenzy to ensure that the victim is not even going to see or be put out by the presence of the individual. You're actually going to put her in the same room, an 18-year-old, with no consideration of the trauma she's going
It
through.
seems as though
She's
the
worried
matter
as
was
to
on
whether
trial
she may
right
have
there and
been.
then.
Yeah.
Exactly. They took on the role of judge, and I
And
will use
jury.
the word
Mm-hmm.
executioner and
Mm-hmm.
jury.
Mm-hmm.
There was no
Yeah.
consideration of the trauma she would have been feeling with regard to whether she would have contracted a sexual disease, a sexual transmitted disease,
Mm-hmm.
whether this could lead to an unwanted pregnancy. All these are real things. And you know what? In 2021, it is totally unacceptable for women in this country to still be dealing with this nonsense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Organizations like Help and Shelter have gone out of their way more than nearly 30 years ago to be giving us and helping us to be aware, and
Yeah.
many other NGOs. You're telling me the police force can't step up right now?
It's sad. It's very sad.
Miss Kathy,
Kamal,
Sharon, please allow me.
I wanted to give Kamal an opportunity to jump in since she hasn't had a chance as yet. So bear with us, Tasha.
Okay,
Apologies.
that's
Kamal,
all
jump
right.
in.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharad. Before I make my comments, this is beyond heartbreaking, troubling, and sad. I would like to extend my sincere condolences to the family of this young woman, Tonika Calder, who unfortunately took her own life. I do believe, if from what I've been following and the information that is out there, it's actually factual. the system has failed another young person of this country. When we are to look at sexual offenses and the prevalence of what women face in society, um, it is quite disheartening the system that is already in place, a broken system, I would say, Sharad, that is already in place to fail victims. This is beyond the police force, in my view, because it has been happening. Miss Calder lost her life, but she is a representation, let's say, for all the young women
Yeah. Yep.
um, of
Yep.
this country. So this is beyond her. And we have been looking at cases time and time again where victims are made out to be the bad guys, and ultimately justice, they're denied justice. So what this brings me to, uh, Sharad, you know, my blood boils when I hear of these
Yep.
cases,
Yep.
because I've been in position where I felt like there was no justice for me. So my passion comes from a place of experience, going to law enforcement and being turned away or being treated as though I
Yep.
had no right to be
Yep.
there. Now, I do not know the full facts of this case, but I would like to believe that the information that I've so far gathered and heard are to some great extent factual. It comes back to a system in our country where professionalism of a police force, law enforcement, whatever it may be, that already has failed, because listening to the details, having a, a alleged rapist present as a victim is giving a recount, that already
Mhm.
says where we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the standard operational procedures
Mm-hmm.
when we deal with these matters?
Mm-hmm.
And when we fail victims in this case, what is the accountability? Where is the action or the change moving forward? Because as I see it, we will have many more of this said Tonika Calder, if I have the name correctly, 18 years old young woman who was cut from her prime because she could not deal
Yeah.
with the trauma like so many other
Oh,
young
Fallon.
women
Mm.
and young people in this country are victims, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
young people are victims. There is basically, when I read the article in Stabrook News, and the posture of the words, all I'm saying is that, and I'm quoting,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
I'm saying is that an investigation was done and legal advice sought.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Sharad, and to the audience, we know that's full stop.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it stops.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we are saying to everyone out there who may face such trauma that there is no action, there is no
Mm-hmm.
accountability,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 where are we heading? As MP Natasha rightfully stated, we say, we use these words, zero tolerance and advocacy, and we're in 16 days of activism. Where is the activism? Just talking about something when it happens, and then there is no change within the system. So MPs, I know I'm talking with the audience, and there are three MPs here. What is the way forward? You know, the family of this young woman grieves like so many other families. We're in 16 days of activism. What happened to the nurse in Linden was that was found in a shallow grave? If she was a nurse or a teacher, I might be a little off. But there were also a nurse in Madia that was allegedly murdered. These women are just At the time of the crime, the incident, they're talked about and then it's forgotten. And nothing is being done to change the system. It is
Mhm.
quite unfortunate. And you know what it does? It other victims, it deprives them of even wanting to
To
seek
come
justice.
forward.
Well,
Exactly.
I
And
know
it
Natasha wants. Yeah,
also it also enable the perpetrators, these people that are out there taking advantage
yes,
and
yes,
sexual
yeah,
offense.
yeah,
We have it in the
yeah,
laws, and we say break the silence and end
yeah,
it, and we
yeah,
say all these fancy words.
yeah,
But if we cannot go to the one place
yeah,
that we should feel safe, whether it be a boy or girl, a woman or a man that was
yeah,
in the most inhumane way violated,
yeah,
I think rape is one of the human violation that the trauma. I don't believe that a rape victim truly heals and move on
yeah,
from that violation of their body. And it is so unfortunate when it ended up from rape to
yeah.
suicide because this young woman felt like the system had already failed her,
And it
like
did.
there was no justice and there was no mental support in place to keep her safe.
Come on,
So
let
it
us
is
call it
quite
thing what it is. It
unfortunate.
failed her. The system failed her.
Yes,
You have a big
Yep.
of
international
course.
theme about orange the world, fund, respond, prevent, and collect,
Nonsense.
right?
Nonsense.
You have a
Waste of
government,
time.
and in the midst of 16 days of activism, you have a sitting minister, installed as he is, an attorney general, no less, who comes out and attack an organization that is speaking out,
Well, I must
speaking out.
say that is quite something. I hope the international community is paying attention because at least if the human rights spoken out about this particular incident, they should be applauded because there are so many incidents. There is so much that is happening in this country where we need as many voices as possible. And when
Correct.
they
Hmm.
do come on board, it seems as though they're being attacked, and that says something to anybody with common sense. Anybody, what is your posture towards justice? And that is the Guyana that we have to continue to expose and fight for a better systems that protects its citizens
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
whatever injustices it may be.
Well said, Kamal. Folks who are now joining us, you are tuned into Below the Belt with Shara Duncan. This afternoon's theme for discussion is to serve and protect the Tonika Calder story, and I'm privileged to be joined by some distinguished women. Natasha Singh Lewis is a member of parliament. Catherine Hughes also is a member of parliament, and Kamal Prasad is the regional vice chair for Region 7, a very, very important region. And she's also the former deputy mayor of Bartica. They are all part of the discussion this afternoon for those of you who are joining us now. And I know Natasha wanted an opportunity to jump in there. Natasha, go right ahead.
Thank you, Sherrod. This might be my last contribution because I'm almost where I have to be. Um, Kamal, I hear so much emotions in your voice, and I know you're passionate for change. I hear you ask, "What do we do?" And I also hear in MP Hughes' statement, she referred to the confrontational method. In my research, and I have been following this matter closely, I was appalled when I saw a response from a senior officer who was who was called to ask about what happened and especially the method used. He related that throughout the years it is protocol for the ranks to use the confrontational method when dealing with such cases. I do believe that, as Ms. Hughes says, in the 21st century, we absolutely need to review that protocol. in relation to violence against women and girls.
Yep.
I do believe we need to look at that. I
Because there was
cannot
one
sit
time we used to think
here.
the world was flat too, but we call it progress. We used to think the world was flat. So not to make light of it,
I,
but
I
I
cannot
mean,
sit, I cannot sit here and accept what the police says just because it is the police force and they said that is their protocol. So what? Let's sit and review the protocol. It's not working. This young lady's matter has proven to us and many other that the confrontational matter method is not working for us. Aren't we going to adapt? Aren't we going to change? Aren't we going to improve the police service? Sharon, I want to ask a question though before I go.
go right ahead, Natasha.
On, on the stewardship of Honorable Kemraj Ramjatan, I know a lot of training was done for the servicemen and women in the Guyana Police Force. What happened? I am sure those police on the East Coast would have benefited. Under
Yep.
the Citizen Security Program, I know the police force had training done. Under the Social Protection Ministry, I know training was done, particularly in this area of gender based violence.
Yep. As a matter of fact, Natasha, just last month, and Kati and Kamal, I noticed that the police force graduated 30 ranks from the GPF. They had a course called a 4-day training on gender based violence, legal literacy, and access to justice to end gender based violence. And so the question I want to add to the discussion too, Natasha, is whether, any of this is getting through to the ranks there because, and that was a partnership between Marunda Incorporated and the Canadian High Commission, that 4-day training. And just recently, too, I see even the Magistrates Court, and we spoke about this in the ring on Friday. We were saying kudos to the judiciary and Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire and UNICEF because they just launched some domestic violence interview and virtual hearing rooms in 7 courts in Burbis, where you are, Natasha. And so,
Yeah.
there is work being done, but is the real message filtering through to the folks who need it the most? That is the question that I
So,
have.
so Sharon,
Go right
I
ahead.
if I if I can, I want to bring a slightly different perspective.
Kathy, just
I
before
know
your,
that.
your, your intervention, if Natasha has to run off, now would be a good time
Yes.
for us to say our goodbyes to her because I know she's working on the ground today.
Yes, Sharon, I absolutely have to go. I was going to message you otherwise. Thank you for having me. This is an interesting conversation. It's a conversation for all of us to have. We must do something to protect our young girls, our women. We absolutely have to do something. And I don't believe with the position that the installed Minister of Legal Affairs has taken to take measures to shut up the Human Rights Association, I don't believe that this is going anywhere. And so, civil society, the members of parliament, we will have to take a strong position on this matter so that change can come about. I thank you for having me. And I am so sorry that I cannot continue and I have to go.
Take care, Natasha.
Natasha,
Thank
we're
you.
very, very grateful for your contribution this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tangshan.
Kathy, I know you were.
Thanks, dear. Bye.
Thanks again for joining us, Natasha. And just to add a little bit before Kathy jumps in there, I'm seeing again, referring to a Starbucks News article based on what Natasha says, that it says that studies have found that relaxed supervision make boys vulnerable to sexual abuse. I just wanted to add that because I know she stressed on girls are vulnerable, but boys as well. Kathy.
Yes, I mean this discussion on a wider scale, we can accept is gender-based violence. Huh?
Yeah.
This particular horrific case of Tonika is what we are looking at, but generally it applies to any gender-based violence. The point I wanted to make, Sharon, is that I am not convinced that the police, these officers, especially the ones that have not been in the force for quite a few years, don't know, have not been trained. Natasha made reference to the extensive training under Minister Ramjatan. I'm not convinced that on a basic human level, how you interact with another person as a decent human being, you would not know that your approach is unacceptable and probably considered evil. So then that poses the question that these guys, these in the three officers doing this interrogation, then knew what the protocols are. And I want to say that just before we spoke, started this program, I called someone within the police force to ask them, what are the protocols? Because I couldn't believe that after all these years, we didn't have some kind of standard operating procedures within the force itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that I was told by this very reliable individual at a fairly high level within the police force, first of all, there's never a confrontation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
According to what they're saying, is that their policy would be that there would be no confrontation unless, of course, the victim specifically agrees or asks or requests this confrontation, right? The second thing is that from the time the report is made, the ranks are aware of who the individuals are within the police force, within specific locations that are in specific divisions that are responsible and handle gender based violence, sexual crimes associated with sexual violence. So, Tanika should not have even had to go to two locations. From the time she went to that first location,
Mm-hmm.
they should have put her straight on a pathway towards the right individuals, the female officers, persons that are specifically trained to deal with these kinds of cases and reporting and investigations. So none of that happened. And from what I understand, it is part of the procedure because they are persons that are specially trained, ranks that are specially trained to deal with sexual matters. So this is where we could see
Yep.
that there's a total all the errors that have taken place. And furthermore, men, if it's a gender-based a crime, the actual gender is not, the opposite gender is not the gender that investigates. So what I mean by that is that this is a rape case. A woman was raped.
Mm-hmm.
We expect female officers that can be a little more understanding
Mm-hmm.
to be dealing with this issue. So if we take as given that the police have these protocols that were not put in place, then let us look at the repercussions of that on the
Yep. Yep.
statement of the Attorney General and also on the responsibilities the Office of Professional Responsibilities have
Yep.
to Tamika, to her family, and to all the women in Ghana, and we expect to be able to hear from them. Because it means that the protocols that are already established have not been followed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
over the years, we say, we know there's been a lot of training. We know these guys should know better. So this had to be a deliberate miscarriage of justice
Yeah.
perpetrated by these officers. And therefore, they must be culpable. There must be sanctions that they must face.
Yep. Justice must be done,
Given that
as the law says. It
justice
must
must be
not
done,
only appear to be done,
justice
it
must
must be
be done.
done.
Right.
Right?
Now, let's go to the Attorney General. And this is where it is so unfortunate that we have now become an absolutely sick nation. Sick nation. Because the persons that should be setting the examples, that know, that should know better, are the ones that continue to fail us. So the Attorney General had a right to be saying to this nation how upset he is, how pained he is. He should have been apologizing to the family. He should have been
Mm-hmm.
apologizing to Tonika. He should have been
Mhm.
asking what the protocols are. He should be checking on what the protocols are. He should have been asking, did any police officer, female police officer, interview her? He should be asking, how come there was a confrontation?
Mm-hmm.
How come the alleged perpetrator was allowed to be in that room? How
Mm-hmm.
come the officers would fail to understand that rape is about power? Rape is not about sex, Sharon. Rape is about power. Somebody that is stronger, putting your force without permission on somebody that is weaker. Right? That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
therefore, the police
Oh, so
officers
sad.
getting into a discussion about the ladies, about Tamika's private affairs, whether she has a boyfriend, if she had sex, when she had sex, all of that. That has nothing to do with the fact that she was
Mm-hmm.
raped. And she has put into the domain of the police force a report that she has been raped. None of those questions or issues are, are needed to be discussed or raised there,
Mm-hmm.
especially in front of the perpetrator and especially in front of her parents or whoever else.
Yeah.
This is not you're not charging her. You're not questioning her morals. You can't bring your warped personal opinion of what you think took place. You are there to be objective. Your bias has to be protecting the victim and let the courts do whatever else. They should have
Yeah.
been bending over backwards.
Yeah.
The attitude and conduct of the interviewing officers is key to ensuring that you gain the victim's trust
Yep.
and cooperation. You
Kathy, I
tell us
agree
to
with you on all
speak up.
points. Kathy, I agree with you on all points. Folks, take the opportunity to share the live stream because we need to educate our people, and hopefully some police officers will be listening in also and do differently. And if you all know some police officers, you should tag them. Folks, you should tag them. Kamal, what are your
Sharon,
thoughts?
I would listening to Kathy quite in agreement.
I agree fully
Hearing her
too.
speak of the Attorney General's posture towards it. I know she used the word rights. It was he had a right, but he has, in my view, also a great responsibility because
yeah,
that is why he is in that position. And when we have persons to the hierarchy taking such stance, what does it say to those below? How can we hold people accountable and how are we moving forward? So basically, we continue to see a breakdown in law, order, and the way justice is being served.
Hmm.
And it's quite disheartening to any victim, whether it be an 18-year-old. Tanika was just 18, just became an adult, just started her life. And like Kathy has said, to bring her personal life into the domain, that is something that a lot of it happens across the board, Shara. This is what happens when someone, whether it be a young male or old male, female, goes to make a report. What does it matter, even if this person does prostitution? Now, I'm not advocating or saying that prostitution is right, but it matters not what a person do in their with their body in a personal way. The justice system and the laws that are there are to protect and to ensure that justice is served. And just disheartening, very, very disheartening. And of recent times, this is what we're seeing happening, where the lawless has somehow become the law, and the law seems to be the lawless thing. Like in so many
Fantastic
cases,
point. Fantastic point you're raising, Kamal. That's a tremendous,
that
fantastic
is
point.
what is happening
Yep.
in Guyana
Yep.
of recent
Yep.
time. Anything that is lawless seems to
Yep.
be taking precedence over what is law. Where is justice?
And
Where are we heading as a nation if we continue to talk about our natural resources and that type of wealth, but we do not develop a country that is fair and just in law? Then
we
we are
doomed.
not
We done with.
serving the people of this
Yep.
country.
Yep.
There is, and in almost all cases there is no accountability, and the people that are in the positions to ensure that change comes and things being done in a professional manner. Sometimes it's so disheartening. I'm so sad to say it that most in recent times it seems like they're more lawless
Kathy and Kamal,
than what has
I
actually
want to pick
happened.
up on that very point in the last moments of our conversation here on our podcast. You know, it seems as though the law has become lawless. And I will put it back to August 2nd, 2020. It seems as though everything since then has become the decadence that has become the Guyana police force. I just want to highlight a couple instances to bear out the point that we're making. There was an election in the police association that was quashed because apparently the right people didn't get elected. The Caribbean Police Officers Association came out and said they do not recognize anybody elected in the second elections there. You had the firing of the Guyana Police Force chaplain over prayer. The man pray against the corruption and a whole bunch of other stuff. He was fired, and lately we saw them pull back. After that, we saw them pull back that. We saw the police commission and the alleged interference by the installed President Irfan Ali. And we know that this is a court issue right now before the High Court. $300 million missing from the Ghana police force. Not thousand, million, $300 million. This is and this is a matter of litigation right now in the magistrate's court. You got the Faisal Karimbash report where young women in the police force alleged sexual misconduct against this high-ranking officer. All right, and this was a matter that came up before the police service commission as well. Right, and then you had police top brass saying that they did not know who ordered this SWAT team to go that ultimately killed Orrin Boston. You got questionable circumstances where members of the public also, in addition to Orrin Boston, have met their demise by police hands. It seems to be a rolling back of all the efforts the previous administration were trying to make. And Natasha Singh Lewis pointed out what happened to all them training the police force went through in domestic gender based violence in the recent past, under the past administration. Like they've thrown everything, they've thrown all the laws, all decency, all ethics, and everything out the window. Where are we heading, women? Kathy and Kamal, where are we going?
We've tended to a lawless state when it comes to a lot of things, and we know that we saw that even as we speak, when it comes to the Henry boys and how investigations are done and how victims are being treated across the board, and that is just so unfortunate that Guyanese need to stand up and they need to realize that when you do not have a justice system or law enforcement that is fair and just and serves the people of the country, then where are we heading?
We in a bad place.
Yep.
We're
Yep. Yep.
in a bad place where we have and to take this just to this particular line or few words, legal advice sought or an investigation will be
Mm-hmm.
launched, and
Mm-hmm.
basically that's the end of a story,
Yeah.
whether it be uh, a maternity death whether it be any sort of injustice that Guyanese face and seek answers, or simply closure, or just knowing that their country is set up in a way to offer them some form of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just talking about this, imagine how many more young persons that would have taken their life, or in this case, who face sexual assault. Imagine what those persons are feeling,
Yeah,
just having to relive or to go through the details of this one particular
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
And again, I would closing saying, if we do not work tirelessly to have a system in place that is a standard based on professionalism, following protocols and standard operational procedure, and accountability from any party when they fall short, then we will not be truly moving forward. You cannot say you're progressing and you're developing a country when you're going backwards. So, days where people can't simply go to the police station and make a report and feel, have some
Yeah.
form of human dignity
Yeah.
installed in them by just being treated in the
Yeah.
manner that they deserve to be treated in. That is the first thing. And like I mentioned at first, I can talk on these issues because I've
Yeah.
experienced
Yeah.
some of it. So I don't speak from a place of here and say, now I'm not saying that in this particular case or other cases, I know.
Yeah.
I just, whatever information is available there, but I know how I was treated as a victim as well.
Yeah.
And this was decades ago, and it's so unfortunate that we're still at that place, and even getting worse, where a victim is made out
And
to the only comfort is ending her life.
yeah.
Imagine the trauma, imagine the depth of her despair and her hurt, that she felt she had no other way to end her pain. And that is where suicide came in,
Yeah.
just wanting to escape from this trauma.
And
And this
Kamal,
is
you
where
said
a
it.
system failed.
Kamal, you put it so eloquently when you said it is getting worse. Because another discussion we have to have is, imagine going to a police station to make an ordinary, innocuous report as a woman and being raped at the station. So it is
yep,
getting worse.
and that has
Imagine
happened.
being
That
raped
has
by police at the station.
Again,
And
again,
this
if no one
transpired
is
at
held
Turkine police station,
accountable.
and at a police station I'm being made to understand in the interior. So it's getting worse. That's another
Sharon,
discussion. Kathy, go right
Sharon,
ahead
we have
with
to
your final
remember
thoughts.
recently, right now, according to what we've seen in the press, 47 police officers are before the courts.
Yeah.
And as we know, two have been sentenced to 25 years
Yeah.
for a rape of a woman,
Yeah.
right?
At a police station.
So, but yes, at a police station. So that's why we gotta be, we could talk and talk and talk, but sometimes we don't like to call a spade, right? And by that, what I want to say is that one side of the fence is saying you must speak out, but really, at the highest levels of government in this country and within the police force, they are telling us to shut up. They're telling us to shut up. They're telling women, don't bother to come and report nothing because we ain't gonna treat you good. As far as we concerned, you must see us fit.
Mm-hmm.
Same backward views,
Mm-hmm.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
may have excellent legislation, but we're doing absolutely nothing about it. When you have one of the highest ranking members of government whose approach is to call out an organization that is saying we need to do something about it, we need to fix this problem. what is Mr. Nandalal going to do? Is he going to call out every single
Yeah.
organization or individual on social media or anywhere that says that this is unacceptable?
Yeah.
Because what he said is his focus is on shutting those people up, shutting the voices that say, guys, this thing ain't working. We need to
Yeah.
fix it. It's
Ca-
exactly
Uh-huh.
the same problem we had with the Henry boys, where we were not interested in dealing with how we treated them in this most painful and heinous crime.
mhm.
But we were more concerned on who said what or who shouldn't say anything.
Correct.
And we were
Correct.
not willing to even investigate. All of this shows in all of these crimes, including the man who was shot in his bed the other day,
Or in Boston. Yeah.
or in Boston. Nobody, the
Yeah.
police force is not interested in
Yeah.
investigating.
You know.
Not interested in
You know.
investigating.
As a
And
Trinidadian say, as
we
a,
have enough evidence, Sherrod, and you went through all the other occasions
yeah.
and incidences. And what they've consistently shown to this country is that we ain't interested in investigating. And I will
Decadence and
say,
decay.
how come in the coalition time, the one thing everybody used to say, well, thank God, after 2 or 3 weeks, we had a proper investigation and we knew what took place. You can't get a proper investigation when you don't tell the young lady to go to the doctor's office to be
Right
examined.
away.
That you can't
Go
find the
tomorrow.
man for two or
Mm-hmm.
3 days.
Mm-hmm.
So that clearly means that they didn't investigate any evidence in the car.
Mm-hmm. Decadence and
All of that is
decay.
totally, and nobody in a higher position has said, you know what, we apologize because this is not acceptable.
Yeah.
But
Sharon,
everybody
can
else must shut up their mouth. So the people they're gonna come for next gonna be Kamal. Let's watch. The Attorney General is going to have something to say about Kamal. They will have something to say about myself. They always got something to say about you, Sherrod. But I want the people listening to know that they took on this job and they must deliver then. And
Correct.
so it's not about us and what we're saying or any organization. It's about what you're going to do to fix the police force that you're now in charge of.
Correct. Correct.
Fix
Fix it.
system,
Fix it.
correct? Yes. Sharad, before you close, I recall the quite the outrage over the issue with the Wild Hog song from various groups and so forth.
Well, Kamal, it is apparent
While I
that you are
personally
peeping
do not
my notes.
agree with while I do not agree with um, referring to my women folk as any degrading name. That's my personal stance. A lot of voices were added to the issue over a song. Where is the outrage when people are actually suffering and losing their lives? Where it matters, where it's not just petty, thin skin stuff. Where
Yeah.
are these women groups? Where are these organizations that came forth? This is the time, these are the issues, and I would like to state um, with what MP Cathy stated. This is not, whatever I have to say is not in any way attacking on any one. It is a system that needs fixing, and if we are serious about governing this country and changing the course that it's on, then we will take our responsibility seriously and do the right thing. It is for the benefit of future generation, the children, the system that we would put in place. This is not an attack on any one
Yeah.
particular person or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that is where a lot of politicians in Guyana gets it wrong, and they're ready
Yeah.
to lash back and that type of thing without realizing what is being said is to the benefit of changing the course and doing right by our motherland and ensuring that we have systems in place that protects its citizens. despite it has nothing to do with race, religion, political affiliation. It is governance. It is what
Correct.
should be done.
Correct.
But
Kamal,
Sharad,
yeah.
Sharad, Sharad,
Go right ahead,
the
Kathy.
other side, I agree fully with Kamal. Other side of the coin is that in a democracy, there's something called freedom of speech.
Definitely.
And therefore, every single person, whether you're an organization, a civil society member, an ordinary market vendor, or whoever, it don't matter who you are. Once you're a human being living in a country and you claim that we live in a democracy, which we all promote living in a democracy, then guess what? We have a right to speak.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
nobody has a right to shut us up.
Fantastic point.
Hmm.
Ladies, we're going to let that be the last word. Catherine Hughes, a member of parliament, Kamal Prasad, the vice chair of Region 7, and the former able deputy mayor of the township of Bartica, the municipality of Bartica. We were also joined by member of parliament Natasha Singh Lewis. Ladies, we are privileged to have had you below the belt. Uh, well, we way over, well, not way over, but we over our lunch break period. But nonetheless, tremendous insight from each and every one of you. And I'm thankful for your hard work out there as members of parliament and as regional officials as well in the instance of Kamal. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me, Sherrod, and happy birthday to MP Amanza.
Yes.
I was
And
coming
take
around to
care.
that. Thank you, ladies. Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, my dear friend Amanza. Have a terrific, terrific day. I send you love and blessings.
I second that.
Awesome. 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 Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
Sherrod.
Again, we were privileged to have MPs Natasha Singh Lewis and Catherine Hughes, and Regional Councillor, Regional Vice Chair for Region 7, Kamal Prasad, with us as well. And thank you, all you fantastic folks. I'm going to give a shout out to a couple of folks before we go. And let us start with MP Amanza Walton Desir, who is celebrating, I think, her 21st birthday today. Happy birthday, Amanza. And, before I close off this discussion on this issue of to serve and protect the Tonika Calder story, Kamal raised an interesting point at the end there. And in my own defense, I want to say that when that chorus or that jingle came out of the Wild Hog, I neither wrote it, produced the lyrics, nor the music for it, composed the music. That originated out of the teachers' protest that was happening at the time. And like in the spirit of sharing information with the Guyanese public, as we do here, that was shared on my page. But besides that, several organizations, as Kamal said, spoke out on that matter. And I want to call them. You had this We Can organization. This is the Women Empowering Communities and Neighborhood. It's about 2 weeks now we're grappling with the Tonika Calder story. I have not seen a single line, much more a word from them in the press on the Tonika Calder story. We Can. This is Women Empowering Communities and Neighborhood. We had also Reverend Pat Sheraton Bisnot, who claims, and this was rebutted, that she represents the Guyana Presbyterian Church as CEO for the Caribbean Family Planning Affiliation as well. Reverend Pat Sheraton Bisnot. I have not heard from her. This nation has not heard from her. For instance, on this Tonika Calder issue, a billion times more serious than Priya Malik Chan, installed Minister of Education, being called a wild hog by the protesting teachers. The PPP, Women's Progressive Organization, they've been silent on 99.9999% of women issues in this country. The PPP's Women Progressive Organization, but they spoke in Priya's defense. Where are they on Tonika Calder's, on this issue that concerns her and that led to her untimely demise? Vindhya Prasad, the very installed minister of Human Services and Social Security, she spoke in Priya's defense for being merely called by the teachers, the protesting teachers, a wild hog. Huh? Vindia has not said a word about the Tonika Calder story. Gail Shaver spoke in Priya Manichan's defense. Mark Phillips spoke in Priya Manichan's defense. We're going into 3 weeks. None of these persons or organizations that came to Priya's defense, teachers calling her a wild hog, in the heat of protest, all of them had public statements. Tonika Calder received the harshest, most brutal, inhumane, sadistic uh, treatment by the hands of police in this country just because she went to make a report that she was raped, ultimately taking her own life. And where are all these people and organizations? Where is government there? Where the PPP there on the Tonika Calder story? We wait. While they await legal opinions. Well, we know what that means in this country. Folks, I want to thank you again for joining Below the Belt today. Take the opportunity to share the live stream as you're here with us. Share the podcast as you're here with us. Savannah Page, good to see you out there. Sherry-Ann Van Rossum, good to see you out there as well. Cherry Baskin Grenage, we see you there, Sherry. We see you there. Wendy Fraser, we see you as well. Patricia Gravesandi Goodman, we are privileged to have you with us. Adam Passad, we see you as well. Patricia Gravesandi, good to see you there. Lots of comment. Candy Naline, Inderjeet, great to have all you fantastic folks joining us. A little bit over program time, but nonetheless, we are grateful to be here. This now our 6th episode on the 6th day of December. It's a fantastic Monday outside. A little rain, but we're going to forgive that in the larger scope of things that happens elsewhere in terms of the weather. Claire Alexis Charmley Richmond, we see you as well. Roger Norris and Carol Hudson, good to see all of you great folks. Progressive Prasad, good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. And guys, we encourage you to partner with us so that programs like this and In the Ring can go forward. This is an affiliate of the In the Ring program. We're privileged to have all of you guys. You know that we're available for your contributions, for your donations, from you, our friends, and our listeners. We have the Cash App platform available. It is the $ in the ring 592. That's our Cash App handle. We're available at PayPal. It's in the ring 592 at gmail.com. That is our official PayPal email, in the ring 592 at gmail.com. Guys, at MMG, we're available at well. It's 627-6963, 627-6963. And the MMG, for those of you who are in the diaspora, that is like we local Cash App. And then we are also available on the Western Union and MoneyGram platform. We ain't got no problems with them, as we always say, guys. We can be had through the MoneyGram and Western Union platforms as well. You have any queries, you have any photographs, you have any videos that need to be shared publicly, guys, send us on that very MMG number, 627-6963. It's a privilege having all of you in the Ring affiliate program Below the Belt today. See you guys later on in the evening at 8 for In the Ring. Until that time, guys, thanks for joining us Below the Belt. Thanks, Natasha Singh Lewis, Catherine Hughes, and Kamal Passad for being on our program today in this, what we were discussing, to serve and protect the Tonika Calder story. Thanks for joining us, guys. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay dry wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe.